Hello, my name is Cece Trezza. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Loyola Marymount University School of Film and Television, and I am so excited to be here presenting today at PsychedelX 2025. Today, I will be presenting my musical Spiritual Awakening, which discusses my own lived experience with psychoactive assisted therapy, namely ketamine therapy. So first up, diving into the story, what is the story about? Well, in this spiritual pop musical, Charlie Smith, a struggling non-binary college student, embarks on a spiritual journey to explore the inner workings of their mind. Under the care of their humorous and inquisitive therapist, Dr. Hudson, Charlie dives headfirst into the ketamine dimension, coming face to face with their ego, higher self, and spirit guides who help guide them to recovery. Now, before I begin, I do just quickly want to say one disclaimer. Spiritual Awakening the Musical and IPN in no way advocates for recreational use of psychedelics or psychoactives. Spiritual Awakening is simply just the encapsulation of one's individual experience with psychoactive assisted therapy. Additionally, ketamine therapy is a very serious procedure that should never be taken lightly. It should never be done unless it is under the care of a licensed mental health professional, and there should be a lot of time put into whether or not this is the right medication and treatment for you. And finally, spirituality is an overarching term to encompass all and any forms of religion, mysticism, or connections to a higher power when discussed in this presentation. So, my framework. First, I will start with my proposal and the research to back it. Next, I will explain my own story, which led me to create this musical. Then we will discuss the treatment plan. Then we will discuss what is a spiritual awakening. Next, we will go through the creative process of creating this musical. And finally, the resolution and implications of combining psychedelic and psychoactive assisted therapies alongside spiritual frameworks. So my proposal. When combined with spiritual teachings and frameworks, psychedelic and psychoactive assisted therapies provide the potential for patients to explore, understand, and integrate all parts of their subconscious mind, leading to increased feelings of self-acceptance, awareness, and interconnectedness, which will be demonstrated through my musical Spiritual Awakening. So some research to back this up. Ketamine-assisted therapy helps to treat treatment-resistant depression through enhancing synaptic plasticity. So this is the brain's ability to form and strengthen connections between neurons, and it allows individuals to develop new, healthier ways of thinking or break free from negative thought patterns. Additionally, the National Institute for Health finds that religious, spiritual, or mystical experiences, also known as RSMEs, that occur during psychedelic-assisted therapies are linked to positive changes in emotions, social behaviors, and attitudes of the patients who undergo them. So if ketamine-assisted therapy is proven to be a successful form of treatment, and religious, spiritual, mystical experiences during psychoactive and psychedelic-assisted therapies are shown to further enhance treatment benefits, then we need to create spiritual frameworks to underlie or work alongside these psychedelic and psychoactive assisted therapy treatments. Thus, who am I? Well, my name is Cece Trezza, and this is where my story begins. So my whole life, I have struggled with treatment-resistant depression, but in 2020, as you can imagine, life got a lot harder and my mental illness also grew. And unfortunately, it was hard for me to get out of bed. It was hard for me to see friends. It was hard for me to get outside just to see the sunlight. And really the only thing that I enjoyed doing, or I felt in the present moment when I did, was biking around the streets of Los Angeles late at night, singing and freestyling songs, using music to cope and really transmute these negative feelings. And you can see some pictures here of me doing just that. And while that is wonderful, that was at the night. So during the day, it was a completely different story. Again, it was very hard for me to really even complete daily tasks. And that's when I knew, okay, I needed to look towards alternative forms of therapy. I had tried many other SSRIs, different talk therapies, and after discussing for a very long time with a psychiatrist, we decided to go down the route of ketamine-assisted therapy. And as I underwent this treatment, I also started to spiritually awaken. And psychoactive assisted therapy was really life-changing for me. It was so helpful with my treatment-resistant depression. I started to love life again. I was seeing friends. I was pursuing passions. I gained confidence that I had lost for a while. And I wrote this musical to encapsulate that experience and promote treatment in that form and help others in doing so. So the treatment plan itself, science meets spirituality. So first off, we have the scientific aspect of this treatment, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. So I underwent Spravato S-ketamine, which is a prescription nasal spray approved by the FDA when under the direct supervision of a healthcare provider to combat treatment-resistant depression. And in this treatment plan, there were 2-hour-long Spravato sessions. And so before the session, I would go into a dark room, I would wear headphones, I would wear an eye mask, and the doctor would administer the nasal spray. And that would last 2 hours. Then after that, there would be a 1-hour-long therapy session with my provider in which we discussed some of the feelings that I had or some of the breakthroughs that I had during the Spravato treatments. And those sessions would happen twice a week for a total of a month. But it doesn't stop there. There is also a spiritual component to this, which actually differentiated this treatment. So normally in ketamine-assisted therapy, there aren't really any spiritual frameworks that necessarily underlie it. However, my experience was a bit different. So I actually read Spiritual Growth, Becoming Your Higher Self by Sanaya Roman, which is a spiritual self-help book during this time. And so I would read a chapter each time before I had a different therapy appointment, and I would use the lessons and insights that I gained during it to really guide me through that therapy appointment. And Spiritual Growth is a spiritual self-help book. It's filled with visualizations, meditations, and techniques to open your heart up and love yourself in new and more loving ways. And this is one of my favorite quotes from it, and this will really outline Charlie's story and journey that they will go through. And it reads, "One cannot find true peace until they become their higher self. And to access their higher self, they must first transcend their ego." So before we begin, what is a spiritual awakening? Well, a spiritual awakening can be defined as a shift in one's awareness, which leads to a deeper connection with their inner self and a more expansive understanding of life, truth, and reality. But how do we take this experience and create an interesting and creative display of it on stage in which those who haven't undergone a spiritual awakening or aren't so spiritually inclined can really understand and enjoy? Well, that's where the creative process comes in, bringing the sessions to the stage. So first off, we have opportunity. My alma mater, Loyola Marymount University School of Film and Television, has a New Works Festival every year in which they encourage students to submit new written works to the festival. I submitted my proposal for Spiritual Awakening the Musical, and it was accepted. From there, I was paired with LMU graduate student Yvette Lawrence Bishop, who directed the show, and UCLA composer Denise Catherine Enrique, who helped to compose the music and create the soundtrack. But you might be thinking to yourself, how did you get an educational institution to put on a musical about ketamine-assisted therapy? And that is a good question, but it was all in the way we framed it. So how can we frame spiritual awakening in an educational context? Well, first, we've started with shifting the focus. So we focus more on the healing aspect of the story rather than the treatment itself. At a time when mental illness is at an all-time high, specifically with college-age students, we really pushed for the fact that Spiritual Awakening the Musical showed the life of a college student who was struggling, but was then able to use tools and look inside themselves to get through these darker parts and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we knew that this needed to be shown now to help the college students who are struggling to see themselves represented in a positive light with a happy ending on stage. Additionally, we framed it in the fact that it was unique and there was ingenuity to this musical. So Spiritual Awakening is the first musical of its kind. Not only was it the first musical ever performed at New Works, but it also exists in its own realm, in its own genre. So there currently are very few, if any, musicals that discuss psychedelic or psychoactive assisted therapy treatments. And the musicals that do exist that may explore mental health or mental illness often do not depict it accurately or do not end in a happy ending. And that was something that I really wanted to work against when creating Spiritual Awakening. I wanted to write something that was impactful, powerful, true, but also hopeful. And we really, again, focused on the fact that music has the potential to teach, heal, and evoke real emotion to help people work through these harder times. And the fact that the story was unique in that it was a non-binary perspective and gave a very different look into this treatment and mental health issues itself. And finally, we framed it through accessibility and the fact that anyone and everyone, even if they didn't have a spiritual background or a spiritual awakening, could understand what was going on and relate to it. And of course, this was a process in and of itself. How do we understand and showcase to people what a spiritual awakening is in a way that they too will resonate with? And so there was a lot of vulnerability and discussions with the cast themselves. And we actually all got Spiritual Growth, Becoming Your Higher Self books, and we would read some chapters of it before the rehearsals. And that was very helpful because I was able to see what the cast understood, what some people related to, maybe what they didn't relate to, and that really helped the actual writing process and coming together process of the musical itself, as well as it helped the cast to understand the characters and Charlie Smith's journey better in order to more accurately portray that on stage. Additionally, in terms of accessibility, we realized that at first we had wanted to do a one-day show, a one-woman show, but in this case, a one-day show in which Charlie would be playing all of the parts of their minds. But we realized that it was actually going to be more accessible to everyone. It would be easier to understand, more dynamic, more interesting, if we could see Charlie actually fighting with the physical representations of those parts of themselves on stage. And that was another way that we really focused on the accessibility of the musical to make it so that everyone could understand, relate to, and enjoy it, and really feel like they knew the characters. And finally, design. How can we capture the feeling and experience of undergoing ketamine-assisted therapy? Well, that's where the ketamine dimension comes in. This is a place of hope, wonder, fear, and all things subconscious. It captures the feeling of floating timelessly throughout space through circling neon lights, geometric projections, and dynamic and disorienting music. And here is a look into Charlie's own mind and experience when they first wake up in the ketamine dimension and are a little bit confused, to say the least.
Why is everything moving? I feel like the room is melting. I'm losing track of time. What is life? Who am I?
Now we have the characters. So as you just saw, that was Charlie Smith. Charlie Smith is inspired by my own experiences, and they represent the emotional struggle and healing process. They want a quick fix, but they will soon learn that no such thing exists. Healing is a lifelong but really rewarding process, and they are stubborn, but they are resilient and will be able to get through the ketamine dimension and everything that is in their mind. And they work alongside Dr. Hudson, who is their quirky, kind, and patient psychiatrist who asks painful questions in order to really help Charlie look inside and feel better. And this is an interaction between them when Charlie first walks into Dr. Hudson's office and wants a quick cure, and Dr. Hudson must bring Charlie back to reality that is not how that works. So Act 1, what's my mental illness?
What's my mental illness? What is my disease?
This is not how this goes.
And then after that, we have Act 2, the ketamine dimension. So this is when Charlie actually undergoes the Spravato treatment and suddenly wakes up in, as you saw before, the ketamine dimension and meets all the other parts of themselves. So first up, they meet the ego. This is their inner critic, the antagonist. They're Charlie's deepest fears and insecurities personified. They're alluring, charismatic, but also manipulative, and they will try to destroy and bring Charlie down any chance they get, as you will see here.
I'm the ego, I'm the one, I'm the main controller who gets it done. And you think, boy, you can stop me.
But luckily, Charlie has their higher self. This is Charlie's protector, an omniscient and omnipresent spiritual being who has already seen everything Charlie will become, knows their life purpose, and helps lead them there, and also helps to protect them when the ego sends very unkind and very untrue thoughts and feelings their way.
I've realized the power inside you, and I will protect the light that guides you through.
And last but not least, we have these spirit guides. So these guides lead Charlie throughout the ketamine dimension, but also throughout Charlie's life. They show up as signs, symbols, synchronicities, repeating numbers. Sometimes even, if you see here, a penny on the ground that's face up to remind Charlie that there is always someone watching over them and around them, helping to guide them to the right path. Next up, we have the final but most fun part of the entire creative process, which was the musical composition. So this is when we took freestyles, if you remember those from the beginning, me riding around in my alien hat, biking around Los Angeles late at night, all of those freestyles from that, and we turned it into finished products. We turned it into a cast album that is now available on all streaming platforms. So I worked alongside Denise Catherine Enrique, who was a classically trained composer. And together, we really tried to understand how and work towards creating music that would reflect Charlie's state of mind in each different act. So specifically in the ketamine dimension, the music is a little bit more disharmonious. It's a little bit more flowy to capture Charlie's fear and confusion and, sense of reality that seems to just be leaving their body. And that was a really fun and interesting part. It was also so enlightening to actually go into a studio and record all of this. So we actually worked with one of my friends from Loyola Marymount University, who is an engineer, and we went to the LMU recording studio. That was a wonderful process, a very long day, I will say, trying to rally together 7 different college students who all have extremely different schedules. We were there for about 10, 11 hours, but I'm so happy with what we created. And here's just a picture of us rehearsing in the LMU Science Lab, because sometimes the theaters are not available to rehearse it, but that's okay. We make it work. So first we will have a snippet of a song that I sang while on a freestyle in Venice Beach.
The time is now. I can be free. My mind's not a prison, but it's just my reality, and I can change it.
And so that was a freestyle that I sang while riding along Venice Beach, and I was really trying to transmute those darker and heavier emotions that I was going through. And what I think is so cool about this is, if you look at this picture here, I took this the same night, and it says Love and Ketamine and Charlie. And this was before I was even thinking about making the musical. This was when I was just trying to transmute those tough emotions. But really, when I look at it now, it seems like a synchronicity that was sent from my spirit guides to really let me know, hey, you're on the right path. This is where you're going. And there's guidance all around you. And I think that's really awesome. So that is where the freestyle started, where the song itself started. And this is where the amazing composer took it.
The time is now. I can be free. My mind's not a prison. It's just a reality.
That is available on all streaming platforms: Spiritual Awakening Musical, Original Cast Recording. So finally, we have Act 3, Breaking Free. The resolution and impacts of this musical, as well as this treatment for treatment-resistant depression. So although there were many personal impacts and benefits of this psychoactive assisted therapy, alongside learning about spiritual teachings and frameworks, there are also cultural and clinical impacts of such. So first off, we have the clinical impacts. Over 70% of adults in the United States report wanting to discuss religion or broader spirituality during therapy sessions. Yet 80% of practicing psychologists report receiving little to no training on addressing these spiritual or religious issues during therapy. And that is something we really have to work towards fixing within the clinical space, so that therapists know how to approach this topic, but patients can also be seen and heard in understanding and exploring these topics further. Additionally, a study by the American Journal of Psychiatry found that patients who played games featuring smiling faces and positive messages after ketamine-assisted therapy remained free of depression for up to 3 months after, whereas patients who did not tended to relapse into a more depressive state after a week or two. And the messages that patients receive before, during, or after ketamine-assisted therapy and psychoactive-assisted therapies and psychedelic assisted therapies play a pivotal role in the treatment success. And if we can incorporate spiritual teachings of self-love, understanding, and compassion into these treatments, then patients may stay depression-free for longer, and that is the end goal. Additionally, there are cultural impacts. Encompassing spiritual frameworks along psychedelic-assisted and psychoactive-assisted therapies can help patients cultivate self-love, self-compassion, and self-understanding, which doesn't just stop there, because it extends beyond themselves. If they are able to be kind to themselves, to understand themselves, and to love themselves, then they are able to take that and give it out to the rest of the world, which in these trying times that we live in, where things are very polarized and there often is not a lot of grace granted to other people or people who are different than us, this is so important, now more than ever, that we can find that self-love within ourselves to give to others. So here's a look into Act 3, Breaking Free, when Charlie realizes they can work with those inner parts of their mind to break through.
I'm looking forward to the person I am, to the stories, the narratives, the life that awaits me a little ways ahead. I'm looking forward and I won't look back.
pieces, dusting myself off, and I'm back on track.
So thank you so much to the IPN team and James Hozoba especially, and the cast and crew. And this is where you can find me. Thank you.